The episode kicks off with Kim spilling his guts to this AI robot, talking about how his life's a living hell and how he absolutely hates his job. But hey, he's stuck doing it anyway. Does the robot care? Nope, it doesn't give a damn. Just like the middle child in a family, Kim's completely ignored. The AI robot just leaves him hanging, and Kim's left feeling even more depressed. We find out that the robot's name is Pax, and Kim's feeling betrayed because even Pax won't talk to him. Out of nowhere, another AI robot strolls up and tells Kim to move aside because it's got a package to transport. He steps aside, and the robot takes the package and goes. Kim's sinking deeper into his depression, feeling like he's on the edge of madness. He needs real human interaction, the warmth of a person, not cold machines. You don't want your girlfriend to be a robot, do you? Complete the like goal of 4,100 and please subscribe if you're new. I only need your like and subscribe to keep going. The scene zooms out and we see this massive Logitech warehouse with drones flying around and AI robots doing all the work, packaging, delivering, the whole 9 yards. And there's Kim, managing these machines, barking out orders. He glances up and thinks, man, I've really ended up in the wrong place. Then we get the backstory. It all started 2 months ago, right after Kim got discharged from the military. He was ecstatic about getting out, but that happiness didn't last long. His parents called him up and told him they'd moved to another city and left the old house behind. They paid for 6 months of rent on a place for Kim and basically told him, go live your life, make money, be successful. That was the day Kim's hellish life began. At first, Kim was loving it. No parents to nag him, 6 months of rent paid in advance, and a little nest egg from his savings. He figured he'd coast for a bit, maybe land a part-time job at a cafe, meet some girls, and just enjoy life. But the world wasn't that kind. Every cafe he walked into told him the same thing. Gotta have a year's experience, or gotta be really handsome, or better yet, gotta be a girl. Kim's dreams of chatting with girls at a cafe job crushed. So he started applying for other jobs, but one by one, the rejections piled up. 2 months later, his savings were drying up, and depression hit him hard. Feeling useless, Kim messaged his sisters, telling them he felt like the biggest loser in the world. And what did his sisters do? Made fun of him, of course. He's so lazy he's got them saved in his phone as Sister-1 and Sister-2. But Sister-2 had an idea. She had a friend who could get him a job at the biggest delivery agency around. And that's how Kim ended up working at Amazonia. Kim's standing there, still looking up, thinking he can't believe this is his life now, delivering packages in a warehouse full of robots. His partner's a machine, and in return, he doesn't even get a decent conversation. Just as he's lost in thought, his manager walks up and Kim tenses up. The manager says they're out of tuna cans, but the AI system shows the storehouse is fully stocked. He tells Kim to go check the warehouse. Kim smiles on the outside, but inside, yeah, we all know how miserable he feels. But what else can he do? He heads to the warehouse and starts hunting for tuna cans. After a while, he finds them, climbs a ladder, grabs a box, and just as he's about to head down, bam! He hears a loud noise. Kim spins around and sees the 10-inch thick iron door slam shut. His heart sinks. He runs to the door, grabs the handle, and tries to yank it open, but no luck. In a panic, he calls his manager, but no answer. Now Kim's frustrated. He thinks about calling 911, but decides against it. Maybe it's just a technical glitch. He's not locked in a freezer or anything. It's not like he's going to run out of oxygen anytime soon. No need to blow this out of proportion, right? If he calls 911 for something small like this, his manager might flip out. So Kim waits, but he's bored. He snaps a selfie, sends it to Sister-2, and tells her he's stuck in the warehouse. He figures he'll wait until evening, and if nobody shows up, then he'll call 911. She laughs, but then suddenly texts back, saying a building outside her place collapsed. Now Kim's stressed. He tries calling his sister, but she's not picking up. He's starting to get a bad feeling, and just as he's trying to process everything, the ground starts shaking and his phone falls to the floor. The warehouse alarm blares and an AI voice screams for all employees to evacuate immediately. Kim's heart is racing. He starts banging on the iron door, screaming, "I'm still in here! Open the door!" But nothing. 2 minutes pass and he gets no response. Desperate, he decides it's time to call 911, but when he grabs his phone, there's no signal. Kim's mind is racing. He's thinking, has the war started? Is the other country dropping bombs? He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on, but before he can, he hears a thud from outside the door. Kim freezes. His eyes go wide, something slamming against the 10-inch iron door, and it's bending like it's made of cardboard. Kim's hands start shaking. Whatever's on the other side of that door? It's not human. Seeing this, Kim gets real scared. His hands start shaking violently. At that moment, Kim realizes that whatever's happening is getting real scary. He hears the sound of a horn from outside. If Kim makes any noise, his death is certain. He stands still like a statue, frozen in place. Kim knows that whoever is on the other side of that door is not human. He starts sweating out of fear. Kim sits down on the floor, terrified. He's praying that whatever is happening will just end soon. Kim thinks this must be a nightmare. He tells himself, once I open my eyes, it'll all be over. But sadly, this isn't a dream. Kim falls asleep there, and when he wakes up, he's still in the same warehouse. It's packed with food and resources, so Kim grabs a box of tuna and starts eating it. Turns out it's been 3 days since Kim got trapped in that warehouse. No one's come to save him, and despite trying to call again and again, there's still no network. Kim realizes something big is going on outside, but he has no idea what. He's confused, wondering, is there a war going on? The alarm that was blaring loud for days has gone quiet since yesterday, so at least now Kim can sleep. But he's thinking, how long can I last here? His battery is about to die too. If he stays trapped, he's done for. Kim's just sitting there praying that his sister's mom and dad are safe. He hopes some soldier will come and rescue him. But then, out of nowhere, a notification pops up in front of his eyes. It says, "You have been chosen. Check your awakened ability." A holographic notification hovers in front of him, and another one soon follows. It says Kim's special ability is subspace, and that he can store any object in front of him inside this subspace, but he can only use it once. Seeing this, Kim smiles, a little crazy, and says, "Finally, I've lost my mind." After being alone for months and now trapped for 3 days, it feels like Kim has finally gone mad. He can't even tell the difference between fantasy and reality anymore, but with a smile, he thinks, hey, lasting 3 days in this situation is impressive. If he's really gone mad, might as well act like it, right? Kim sees it says he can store anything in his subspace, so he says, I want to store this entire logistics warehouse. The system confirms, and when Kim says yes, the entire warehouse disappears. Kim suddenly falls to the ground with a bang. He's confused. He gets up, looks around, and is shocked to see that the sky has turned yellow. All the trucks are upside down, and then he sees his boss lying dead, crushed by something big, with his guts spilling out. Seeing this, Kim feels disgusted. He almost pukes, and then he does. While this is happening, the system notifies Kim that the storing has begun. An operating system suitable for Kim has been found, but because he put such a big object in his subspace, it'll take time for the whole logistics center to be fully stored. We see a progress bar showing 6%, but Kim's too busy puking to care. Suddenly he hears loud footsteps approaching. Kim sees a huge shadow behind him. It's the same growling sound he heard when the doors were slamming loudly before. Now Kim knows there's a monstrous creature standing behind him. We see it, a 15-foot-tall orc with big teeth, red eyes, and blood all over its body, standing right behind Kim. He's drenched in sweat. Kim keeps telling himself, calm down. That noise could just be a gorilla or a bear. Maybe it's just a wild animal, right? Without looking back, Kim starts running, thinking, whatever it is, it's not focused on me yet. If I run, maybe I can get away. But as soon as Kim takes off, the orc growls loudly. Kim glances back, and as soon as he does, his eyes go wide, because a real monster orc is chasing after him. Kim starts screaming, running even faster, but his foot slips in his boss's blood and guts, and he nearly wipes out. He's freaking out, unable to process what an orc or some fantasy monster is doing here. He doesn't understand what's happening, and the orc is closing in fast. If this keeps up, the orc's gonna catch him in just a few seconds. Kim realizes his death is inevitable. But suddenly, the system notification pops up again. It says, synchronization complete, you can now enter your subspace. The orc is just a few feet away. Kim yells, yes! Without thinking, and a portal opens in front of him. Just as the orc raises its hand to grab him, the portal sucks Kim inside. Now, Kim's standing inside the portal, eyes closed, thinking, am I in heaven? But when he opens his eyes, he's shocked. The orc is still there, staring at him from the other side of the portal, but it can't come in. With a shocked face, Kim asks, why can't it get inside? Just then, a drone flies in and explains that no one can enter the subspace except Kim. Without his permission, no one can get in. Kim's stunned by how human-like the drone is. He looks around and realizes he's standing in the logistics center where he used to work. Damn! Kim just unlocked Amazon. Domain expansion. Kim was confused and amazed. He asked the system, Did you really put the entire Logitech facility inside my subspace, or are the subspace and the warehouse merged? The system confirmed it. Yes, the entire place was now inside his subspace. The same robots were all there, moving like nothing happened. Then the system announced, "Since you've entered the subspace for the first time, you'll receive a reward for completing the tutorial." A 1-mana stone materialized in Kim's hand, but before he could even figure out what the hell it was, the monster outside started slamming against the portal. The noise startled him, and for a moment Kim almost forgot he was being chased by a fucking monster. The orc growled, drooling, staring at Kim with bloodlust. It couldn't wait to tear him apart. Panicking, Kim frantically shouted, "Are you sure the monsters can't get in?" The system calmly confirmed that nothing could enter the subspace without his permission. Then the system window flashed again, stating that the PAX Fulfillment Center was a 5-story building, covering 33,000 square meters. It had every product needed to improve customers' lives, with a shipping speed of 60 kilometers per hour and a shipment size limit of 2 meters per package. Kim blinked, just as clueless as we are, and muttered, "What the hell does shipping speed even mean at 60 kilometers per hour?" But before he could make sense of it, the system further confused him, revealing there were only 2 minutes left until maintenance. "Wait, what?" Kim asked, confused and a bit worried. "Is the whole logistics center gonna shut down after 2 minutes?" The drone confirmed this, but added that he could use the mana stone to supply energy and keep the facility running. Since Kim had just 1 mana stone, it would power the entire place for the next 24 hours. Kim was blown away by the efficiency of the stone, but the drone quickly explained that when the PAX Fulfillment Center was stored inside the subspace, the energy system had been modified to fit its new environment. "So this whole facility runs on mana stones?" Kim asked, skeptical. "Is this real or is this just some sci-fi bullshit?" Before the drone could respond, the lights suddenly went out and the drone started flashing warning signals. The PAX system chimed in, explaining that the energy supply to the facility had been cut off, and if it wasn't restored soon, PAX Fresh products would start rotting. PAX Fresh was responsible for storing and delivering everything from fresh vegetables to meat, all kept in frozen and refrigerated conditions. Kim glanced back at the monster, glaring at him through the portal, and realized that the outside world was basically a war zone. In this situation, food was crucial for survival. With the freezers and refrigerators losing power, it was a huge problem. "Is the mana stone really a substitute for electricity?" Kim asked, not entirely convinced. The drone confirmed it, so Kim asked the next obvious question. "How do I get more mana stones?" The drone replied in a matter-of-fact tone, "You can obtain mana stones from beings of another world." Well, that wasn't exactly comforting. Our boy Kim was not thrilled at the idea of fighting some muscle-bound monster that could rip him apart like paper. "Use the mana stone for now," Kim sighed, giving in, and then he bolted into the facility to grab some weapons. Once inside, he picked up a handful of weapons, and the system flashed the price for each. He started worrying about running out of supplies if he just threw everything at the monster. Plus, he wasn't even sure if these blades could penetrate the monster's thick skin, so he came up with a plan. He'd focus on wounding the monster gradually. Since the orc couldn't enter the subspace, Kim didn't need to take it down in one go. He just had to injure it, save his resources, and avoid running out of weapons too soon. With all his strength, Kim threw an axe at the monster. It grazed its skin, and the orc roared, now even angrier. Seeing the monster getting even more rage-filled, Kim started to panic, but he kept going. He threw 13 more heavy axes, but nothing happened. Not a single dent on the beast. His plan wasn't working, and he realized he was running low on weapons. Desperate, he asked Pax how many axes were left in stock. While Pax was busy gathering the info, Kim thought to himself, should I throw a bowling ball? Maybe he should aim for the dangling flesh on the orc. Yeah, that might do some damage. But then Pax shocked Kim with the response. There are 15 more heavy axes remaining. Wait, what? Kim said, baffled. He had just counted. There were only 15, and he'd already used 14. That meant there should only be one left. He quickly asked for the location of these extra axes. Once Kim reaches the storage area, he's shocked to see 15 axes scattered all over the floor. He questions why there are 15 axes when there should only be one. Pax explains in its calm, robotic tone that this is one of Kim's abilities. He can duplicate any item inside his subspace, except mana stones. This revelation hits hard. If what Pax says is true, then Kim has access to infinite stocks of weapons. The system confirms it, leaving Kim relieved. He doesn't need to worry about running out of weapons ever again. He could just toss axes at the monster all day long without depleting his stock. Feeling a bit cocky, Kim jokes to Pax, saying, "At this rate, my shoulder's gonna give out before this thing dies." Pax, ever the helpful system, suggests something interesting. Why don't you try the automatic shipment system? Pax explains that Kim can ship one object every 30 seconds, and if he wants to reduce the shipment time, he can upgrade his subspace level using mana stones. Kim's like, "Wait, what? Ship an axe to the orc? How?" Pax calmly responds, "All you have to do is think about the axe, then shout, 'Ship.'" Kim's like, "All right, let's give it a shot." He thinks about the axe, yells, "Ship," and before he even knows what's happening, the axe rockets through the portal like a bullet, landing right in the middle of the orc's face, killing it instantly. Kim stands there, stunned, his eyes wide open. He's just unlocked Amazonia Prime service on beast mode. Finally, he understands what that 60-kilometer-per-hour shipment speed was all about. Pax then reveals that Kim can adjust the speed, maxing out at 60 kilometers per hour. To go beyond that, he'll need to enhance his skills. Naturally, Kim asks, "How do I level up these skills?" The system explains that he can do so using mana stones. At this point, Kim remembers the monster he just killed and realizes he's going to have to fight more of these creatures if he wants to advance. He doesn't waste time. He grabs some gear from the facility, starting with some lightweight combat boots for around 50,000 Korean won and tactical combat pants for about 78,000 Korean won. He also snags a detailed map of the Seoul metropolitan area and a permanent marker. With his map in hand, Kim circles the Gwangju district and marks the neighboring districts, setting a plan to work his way toward his final destination, Ijeongbu, where he hopes to find his parents. But there's one small problem. Kim's starting from Gunpo, and he doesn't even have a car. He realizes it's going to be a long journey to reach his parents. But hey, in a post-apocalyptic world, a regular bicycle is worth its weight in gold. At this point, it might as well be a Lamborghini. He hops on the bike and starts pedaling through the desolate landscape, determined to survive and find his family. After about 30 minutes, night falls, and he's managed to take down almost 12 orcs during this short journey. He then reveals to us that he has learned one valuable thing after taking down 12 orcs. But before he can explain anything about his discovery, a monster suddenly appears and tries to attack him. Kim quickly retreats into his subspace, leaving the monster outside. While the monster is immobilized, he uses his shipment ability again to deliver the axe with incredible speed. Unfortunately, the axe misses its mark slightly and only injures the monster's shoulder. To use his shipment ability again, Kim has to wait 30 seconds for the cooldown, and there's also a range limit of 10 meters. Despite these downsides, he's learned that his skills are pretty amazing and can be improved by gathering mana stones and upgrading them. Besides shipment, Pax's ability has other applications, and we will figure out soon what that is. Suddenly, the monster notices movement behind him, and when he turns around, he sees the axe flying back into the portal, and then it comes back, hitting him in the face again, sealing his fate on the spot. This is actually the second application of Pax's shipment ability, which is also known as product retrieval. It automatically brings back dispatched items, which is just as convenient as the shipment ability. Kim uses his retrieval ability once more to get the mana stone from the monster. He's kind of curious why he can't simply retrieve the mana stone like this without killing the monster. He then asks Pax the same question and learns that he can only use the retrieve skill on the stone because it belongs to him only after he kills the monster. Nevertheless, Kim steps out of his subspace and reveals to us another piece of crucial information he had learned about this apocalyptic world. Apparently, the bizarre orcs aren't the only creatures ravaging the planet. There are also winged monsters, and he knows it's going to take a lot to hunt one of those down. Suddenly, he hears cries for help. But before he can figure out who is calling, the scene transitions to a man named Choi, desperately trying to run. He's so exhausted that each step seems heavier than the last, and a flying creature is trying to hunt him down. The monster swoops in, slamming the man from behind and sending him crashing to the ground in agony. There's another person behind the injured man, but before this other guy can help his friend up, the monster lands right in front of him and blocks his path. Its ferocious mouth is drooling, as if human flesh is the most delicious thing in this area. But strangely enough, the monster doesn't attack the man standing in front of it. Instead, it turns its gaze toward Choi, who is lying on the ground, groaning in pain. The man is bewildered to see that the monster isn't attacking him and realizes that this creature was targeting Choi all along. Likely because Choi is smaller and seems like an easier target. He has no clue what to do against this giant monster to save his friend, because all he has is this little knife, and he's not sure if this knife can even be used to distract the monster. Just then, the ring of a bicycle bell echoes through the area, and not surprisingly, it's our boy speeding toward them. But these two have no idea who or what is coming their way. Before they can process what's happening, they watch in shock as the monster that was hunting them down is struck by a projectile, sending it sliding across the ground from the force of the blow. The monster was knocked down by a single throw of an axe, leaving both of the men struggling to process what they had just seen. Kim quickly checks if they are all right, but they are still in awe, their jaws hanging open as they try to grasp how someone on a bicycle managed to defeat a flying wyvern with just an axe. The two of them quickly ask Kim if he is a soldier, and they begin bowing their heads in respect, grateful for saving their lives. Kim, glad that they are safe, answers their question by pointing to his uniform. He explains that he is an employee of Payex FC, and they can see he is wearing the company's uniform. This revelation shocks them even more. They had assumed he was a seasoned soldier given his impressive skills and appearance. Even if he wasn't a soldier, his abilities are so extraordinary that if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they'd never have believed that someone could take down a wyvern with a simple axe throw while riding a bicycle. Kim is surprised to learn that these people are familiar with the concept of abilities. One of them quickly agrees, mentioning that he has an awakened ability himself, though it's just a modest driving ability. Given the circumstances, he hasn't had a proper chance to use it. The other Choi begins to laugh and admits he feels a bit envious because he hasn't awakened any ability himself. Kim then asks if there are any other people around. Choi confirms that there are not, explaining that they are in Block C, which has a logistics center. A lot of people gathered here, but unfortunately, monsters did too. Most of the people were attacked, killed, or eaten alive. Only around 10 to 15 survivors are left, and they are relatively isolated in Block E's underground terminal. He further explains that they were looking for a road that vehicles could use, and they also wanted to gather some daily necessities. But suddenly, they were attacked by the monster. The other person then suggests that instead of talking here, Kim should join them. He's welcome to come with them to their living quarters on the 4th floor of the basement. They assure him that the monsters never attacked that area, so they can sleep comfortably there. They even offer him some light snacks. Kim considers the offer, eyeing the opportunity to gather some info on the vehicles they mentioned earlier. He's desperate for any leads on how to get a functioning ride. After a moment of hesitation, he decides to accept the invitation, even though he's still unsure if he should trust them fully. As they begin to walk away, the camera pans back to the dead monster lying on the ground. That's when our boy, Kim, quickly retrieves the mana stone from inside the beast, tucking it into his subspace. He feels a surge of relief, knowing that these guys have no idea about his ability. And since Kim isn't exactly a benevolent god, he knows he's got a backup plan. If anything goes south, he can escape into his subspace without a second thought. A while later, they finally reach the basement. As they walk in, Kim's eyes widen in shock. He sees a man who looks like he's just taken down an orc all by himself. Kim's heart skips a beat. This guy is no joke. The atmosphere inside the basement is tense, and Kim starts to realize just how dangerous this place really is. He's definitely scared, but he's got to keep his cool. Choi quickly runs over to his friend, asking what happened and if everything is all right. The orc killer reassures him that everything is fine, explaining that the orc must have wandered in by accident. Fortunately, it didn't see them, so they were able to take it out easily. No one is injured, but they can no longer be sure that the place is safe. On the other hand, Kim feels a bit terrified by how dangerous this place is, but he quickly snaps out of his thoughts when the orc killer asks about him. Choi explains that Kim is the one who saved them from the wyvern and used to work for PAX FC. He also mentions that Kim is quite strong, having killed the wyvern with a thrown axe from a distance. Everyone is amazed and curious about what kind of ability he might have. At that moment, a woman rushes toward Kim, absolutely thrilled that he saved Yongsu and Choi. She's so grateful that she begins doing a happy dance. The others start to gather around him, showering him with praise. Kim tries to downplay it, saying he was just doing what he had to do. Just as our boy is getting so much attention, Choi tries to disperse the crowd, telling them not to tease the young guy. Just then, the orc killer speaks up, saying that everyone here has been working together for over 10 years, and that Yongsu and Byung-chul are like family to him. He's genuinely grateful to meet someone who saved his family and introduces himself as Lee Jin-mok, the center manager of Amazonia. He even bows his head in respect for saving his two friends. Once the pleasantries are over, Jin-mok gives Kim a brief rundown of the place. He explains that while they can't guarantee the safety of the location, it's much more comfortable than the outside world. They have food and water supplies from the logistics center, so Kim can eat as much as he wants without feeling embarrassed and can make himself at home. Jin-mok also mentions that they have plenty of supplies and can get more from the logistics center if needed. However, Yong-soo interrupts to point out that the logistics center they're talking about has suddenly disappeared. Of course, everyone is left wide-eyed and their mouths are hanging open at this absurd news. Jin-mok quickly asks, "What on earth does this even mean?" Choi confirms it again, saying it's literally gone, and explains that this is why they were chased by the wyvern. The others in the group refuse to believe this and question how such a massive building could simply disappear. Jin-mok finally comes to terms with the reality and tells his other friends that if the monsters roaming around can be real, then it's not too far-fetched to believe a building could vanish into nothingness. Meanwhile, Kim stands silently, and I'm not quite sure if the disappearance of that logistics center has something to do with our boy's subspace. Anyway, the manager tries to keep everyone calm and tells them that no matter what, they need to dig through the tunnel. If they stay here, things will only get worse. He encourages everyone not to be discouraged, saying their time has just come a little early, and they will start heading into the tunnel as soon as possible. The woman from before tries to motivate the others by reminding them that even without the logistics center, they still need to think about their next move. So she insists they must force their way through. Kim turns to the manager, asking what "force our way through" actually means. The manager explains that everyone here has homes elsewhere, and vehicles are essential for travel. However, with the roads blocked, they need to find a way through. Kim perks up at the mention of the vehicles and asks for more info. The manager confirms they do have working vehicles, but explains that all the roads are blocked. The golf course obstructs the way to the north, containers block the east, and the southern Yongdong Expressway is completely destroyed. The tunnel to the west is the only exit, but unfortunately, a group of wyverns has taken over that tunnel. Until now, everyone has been surviving by getting food and water from the logistics center, but now they have to force their way through. The manager tells Kim that he doesn't have to go through the tunnel since the blocked roads are for vehicles, and there are ways to escape on foot or by bicycle. However, Kim quickly responds that he needs a vehicle as well, and thinks it's best to go through the tunnel. The manager does not try to change our boy's mind any further, and simply says he's welcome to join them if he's up for it. Kim smiles and says he'd be glad to work with them. Kim also thinks to himself that it would be better if he kept his abilities hidden. While the group seems nice enough, he can't ignore that they've been struggling to survive while he was safe in the center. They might have run out of food and supplies, and he's sure they won't be upfront about their situation. He understands their need for secrecy and plans to stay cautious as well. He then turns to the manager and says he wants to check out the situation with the tunnel and the wyvern. He's planning to go scouting, but in reality, he just wants to use his abilities to demolish that horde of monsters and rack up some sweet mana stones. The scene then flashes back a little. After taking down a bunch of monsters, he's saved up 5 magic stones. With these, he can cut the cooldown on his shipping ability down to 5 seconds. That's when he sees 3 new shipping abilities. The first one is Precise Delivery, which, as the name suggests, locks onto the target and guarantees a hit. The second is Simultaneous Delivery, which lets him ship up to 2 items at once. The third is Automatic Delivery, which allows him to automatically deliver designated items, with the timing interval being adjustable. As cool as these sound, each one costs about 10 stones. And our guy is totally looking forward to seeing them in action, though he's still a bit unclear on what exactly automatic delivery does. In the present moment, he's grinning from ear to ear, thrilled that he saved up the magic stones and looking forward to his scouting mission to earn some more. Or so he thought. His dream of purchasing fantastic abilities is quickly dashed when he finds himself stuck with Yong-soo, one of the guys he had saved earlier. When our boy asks him why he's tagging along, Young-soo says it's too dangerous to go outside alone. Kim quickly reminds Young-soo that he was the one being chased by a wyvern, but Young-soo insists it doesn't matter because he can't let him go alone. Besides, he's confident that Kim will save him again if needed. Kim then remembers Young-soo mentioning he had awakened a driver's ability, so he asks him if he can see a message window or something like that. Young-soo says he hasn't seen any message window or anything like that, but he has a gut feeling that he has indeed awakened an ability. It just hasn't fully matured yet. Well, this info isn't exactly reassuring to Kim, and he's starting to feel pretty worried. As night falls, their bike zooms down the road at insane speeds. Kim is literally sweating in fear as he watches Young-soo steer the bike with one leg while trying to balance on it. When he asks why Young-soo is driving like this, the man responds that there are so many cars on the road and it's hard to see. That's when Young-soo spots a wyvern up ahead. Kim quickly tells him to stop since he can't see a thing. It looks like the monster has finally caught up to their presence, and as it glares at them, Young-soo asks what they should do. Just then, a projectile hits the monster, taking it down in one blow, leaving Young-soo completely baffled. Meanwhile, Kim calmly tells him to keep his head straight and not look back. While he says this, he sneakily retrieves the mana stone and stores it in his subspace. Finally, Young-soo points out that he can see the tunnel up ahead. He slams on the brakes, but before Kim can ask him why he stopped in the middle of the road, the reason for their abrupt halt becomes clear. They see a ton of monsters crawling around the area. Young-soo is absolutely terrified, and it wouldn't be surprising if he's already sharted in his pants. As one of the monsters starts to walk toward them, Young-soo is pretty sure their game is over. Even with the electric bikes, there's no way they can outrun this many wyverns. Just as Young-soo braces himself for the worst, Kim decides he has no choice but to use his subspace ability. He quickly calls up his system, dumps his mana stones to cut down the cooldown from 30 seconds to only 5 seconds. Young-soo, confused, asks what the heck he's doing, but Kim doesn't bother to explain. Meanwhile, the monster lets out a deafening roar, and every monster in the vicinity starts closing in from all directions. Just in the nick of time, Kim shouts, "Ship!" and a projectile comes crashing down, taking out the monster and saving Young-soo. Young-soo, still anxious and panicked, glances back and is left wide-eyed when he spots a huge portal behind them, and Kim was standing in front of the portal. Then we see Kim upgrading his subspace 6 times, reducing the cooldown time of shipment to just 5 seconds. Pax explains that if Kim wants to reduce the shipment time even more, he'll have to upgrade his subspace level further using mana stones. On the other hand, after taking down the monster, Kim quickly grabs the mana stones from it and tells Young-soo to stick close, because that's the only way he can keep him safe. Young-soo, still clueless about what's going on, nods and follows, though he's wondering why there's a whole logistics center behind them. Just then, more monsters show up, trying to attack Young-soo, but with Kim's Amazonia Prime service in full swing, he takes out a wyvern in one shot. But it ain't over. More wyverns show up, and this time, they're gunning for Young-soo. Thinking fast, Kim opens his subspace in front of Young-soo, acting like a shield, saving him from the attack. The monsters don't back down, though. They brutally slam into the subspace barrier, but Young-soo, caught off guard, stumbles back and falls to the ground. The monster regains its footing and charges again, but Kim slips into his subspace just in time, leaving the creature to crash into the barrier once more. The next second, an axe flies out, taking the monster down in one clean hit. Young-soo watches the whole thing in awe, as if he's just witnessed a miracle. He can't believe what he's seeing. The logistics center, the axes flying around like magic. He's starting to see Kim as something more than just a man. To him, Kim is a god, and the tunnel is just a speed bump he can handle without breaking a sweat. As Kim reflects on how everyone in the basement wanted to use the delivery vehicle to safely move food, he realizes the tunnel was just part of the plan for them. Even if they make it through, the monsters will still be out there. But for Kim, it's different. He just needs the vehicle to get from point A to point B. Handling the monsters is just another day at work. Young-soo starts feeling a little jealous, thinking how easy it would be if he had Kim's abilities. He could get to his family in no time, but what really puzzles him is why Kim, with all his power, even bothered to help him in the first place. Suddenly they notice the monsters running away. Kim smirks, fascinated. These reptiles are smarter than he thought. They know when to flee instead of charging into certain death. While Kim's retrieving the mana stones, Young-soo spots a blue stone hovering in the air and asks what it is. Kim, confused, asks, "You've never seen a mana stone before?" Youngso shakes his head, so Kim explains that he uses them to enhance his abilities. Now Youngso gets it and wonders if he'll ever get a chance to try one himself. Suddenly, Kim understands why Youngso didn't even think to extract the mana stone from the orc. They didn't even know about them. Youngso, still processing everything, points out that with Kim's abilities, he could solo the entire tunnel single-handedly, so why bother coming down to the basement and meeting everyone? Kim, realizing his secret was out, stands there with an awkward smile. Youngso, misunderstanding that look, thinks Kim's real intention was to steal their resources. Kim quickly corrects him. No, I just came to check things out, see if there were people I could trust after the world went to hell. I didn't plan on clearing the tunnel, I just wanted to see if it was doable." Youngso apologizes for assuming the worst, but Kim reassures him there's no need to worry. "I didn't know the way to the tunnel anyway, so if I'd come alone, I wouldn't have made it through." "You helped more than you know," he says with a grin. Kim then suggests they head back since the wyvern has receded for now, but there's no telling when it'll attack again. That's when Youngso nervously asks how far Kim's planning to go that he needs a vehicle. Kim explains that he's trying to reach his family, and his final destination is Uijeongbu, near the Gangnam district. Hearing the word Gangnam, Youngso is startled. With a trembling voice, he says, "I'm heading to Indeokwan, which is on the way. If it's not too much trouble, can I come along with you to Indeokwan? My family's there." Kim isn't sure how to respond at first, but Youngso continues, saying he's not confident he can make it home safely on his own. "My driving ability won't help me in a fight, but with you around, we've got a better chance of getting through." Youngso promises to help Kim reach Gangnam faster than anyone else and swears he won't be a burden. He even offers to provide food along the way. Kim starts seeing some real value in this partnership. Youngso's driving skills are beyond doubt, and more importantly, if this guy is on his side, he won't spill the beans about Kim's abilities. It's a win-win situation because Kim fears that if his abilities became known, there's no telling what people might do, maybe even try to assassinate him, though that might be overthinking it. Still, better safe than sorry. So all in all, Kim finally gives Youngso the green light to tag along, and Youngso perks up like a kid in a candy store. Kim then tells him he'll handle the tunnel and makes it clear that Youngso should keep his abilities a secret. He even asks him to make sure everyone else stays out of his way. Youngso eagerly agrees, promising to ensure that everyone cooperates. He's super positive about it, ready to do his part. But things don't go as Kim hoped, because that foolish guy went ahead and told everyone that Kim would be able to break through the tunnel on his own, using his awakened abilities. All they need to do is wait outside until he's done, and then they can move forward. Kim is left wide-eyed and clueless, seeing that Youngso just spilled the beans on what was supposed to be a secret. The others are astonished by this news and are eager to see how Kim is going to pull it off. Youngso, on the other hand, is more than happy to explain, while Kim curses his rotten luck, realizing he's now in a tough spot. In the end, Kim steps up and says that by tomorrow morning, he'll have the tunnel cleared for everyone to leave. In his mind, helping them is the best plan he has, considering they still have food supplies, which should keep things relatively calm. Once the supplies run out, chaos will likely erupt among everyone, so it's wise to clear the tunnel and ensure everyone can leave safely. That's when the manager calls out to Kim, saying he won't pry into his abilities or ask any questions about them. Instead, the manager respects him for the decision he has made to help everyone. He offers some food supplies from their reserves to Kim, which leaves him quite taken aback because this much generosity is just too much. The manager explains that since Kim risked his life to scout the tunnel, all they can offer in return is a bit of food. Now that he's even clearing the tunnel for them, they feel they can't repay him enough for his kindness. They apologize, saying all they can offer right now are a few words of gratitude. Kim tries to explain that he did it for himself because he wanted to, and that they shouldn't have to go to such lengths to help him. He insists that the food must be meant for their families and tells them to keep it. Youngso, however, steps in and tells Kim to just take it, and further points out that rejecting the food would be too harsh for everyone involved. Youngso also reminds Kim that he has a family too, just like everyone else. At that moment, Kim sees how excited everyone is to reunite with their families, and it makes him feel a pang of sadness because he doesn't want to let them down. As everyone enjoys their time together, the next day arrives. When they finally reach the tunnel entrance, Kim tells everyone to stay back. He then starts pedaling his bike into the tunnel, determined to clear it out and come back. As he gets closer to the tunnel, he begins to spot the monsters. But before we see him battling them, the scene flashes back to his childhood. We see young Kim with a sore eye from a fight with his sister. He complains about it to his father, which leads to another argument with his sister, and they eventually start beating the shit out of each other in front of their father. That's when his father points out how close they seem to be. His father reflects that he was an only child, so he always envied the bond between siblings. He tells them that they have no idea how envious he is of their relationship. And even though they may argue now, they'll soon realize how truly precious family is. Suddenly, their mother bursts into the room, leading to a hearty argument between their parents. It's at this moment that Kim feels the warmth of family. The scene then transitions to the previous night, where Kim is recalling all these moments with his family after seeing how everyone is overjoyed at the prospect of finally reuniting with their families. Knowing that Kim would clear the path for them, they spent the entire night like that, basking in the warmth of anticipation. When midnight strikes and everyone falls asleep, Young-so wakes up to use the bathroom. Noticing that Kim is missing, he heads outside and asks the patrolling guards about him. They report that Kim said he was going out for some fresh air a while ago. He then walks further and looks around and finally spots Kim. He quickly asks why Kim can't just sleep, and Kim replies that he can't sleep here. Just as Young-so looks ahead, he is absolutely boggled out of his mind to see that the entire vehicle is filled to the brim with food and supplies. Young-so finds this ridiculous and quickly asks why Kim is giving away so much stuff. Kim just casually mentions that he only loaded about half to avoid making the vehicle too heavy, but this amount should be more than enough for everyone. Young-so is even more astonished when Kim says this is the last vehicle he had to load. The realization hits Young-so quite hard because if this is the last vehicle, then Kim must have packed the other 15 vehicles with the same amount of supplies as well. Kim quickly tells him to keep this a secret from everyone else. Young-so, however, points out that if Kim is giving away all of this stuff, what will they use during their journey? Kim just casually says they still have plenty of supplies left. Young-so is left astonished to hear this, realizing that the amount of supplies Kim just generously gave away is more than what you'd find in an entire logistics center. He can't fathom how much Kim must have in stock to give away so much. We return to the present, where Kim is effortlessly demolishing monsters like it's no big deal. As he fights, he thinks about how much easier it would be if he could just put all the people into his subspace and carry them to the other side. Unfortunately, his system states that with the current subspace level, it's not possible. But if he achieves subspace level 2, he could accommodate up to 20 people. To reach that level, he'd need to gather at least 100 mana stones. Kim quickly does a mental tally and notes that there are at most about 40 monsters, with a few running away. Given the numbers, leveling up here isn't feasible. He still needs to think of another way to level up, because he eventually wants to put his own family into the subspace. Suddenly, Kim notices something unusual among the fleeing monsters. A closer look reveals a jacked-up version of a wyvern, and I can tell this is some kind of boss-level monster. Even Kim isn't sure what he's dealing with. We finally cut back to the outside, where everyone is anxiously waiting for Kim to come out. Some are starting to worry if he's okay inside that tunnel. Then, they finally spot him emerging from the tunnel, effortlessly pedaling his bicycle like he's just out for a casual ride. His uniform is smeared in blood, and the group looks on anxiously. But they soon breathe a sigh of relief when they see a smile spreading across our boy's face. They burst into a joyful dance, celebrating the successful completion of their mission. Looks like it's finally time for everyone to part ways and reunite with their loved ones. They express their gratitude to the manager for sticking with them until the very end, hoping he gets home safely as well. Kim hints that if they run into any trouble, they should try opening the cargo hold, as he has prepared a little gift that might be helpful. Everyone is intrigued and curious about the gift, but they eventually get into their respective cargo trucks and start making their way through the traffic. Once they cross the tunnel, they wave their goodbyes one last time and head down their separate road. We then see Kim sitting in the passenger seat, still preoccupied with the monster he saw in the tunnel. He's unsure if it was actually a wyvern, as it fled so quickly he didn't get a good look. He starts wondering if the wyvern he spotted was a leader, or maybe just an adult version of these monsters. But his thoughts are cut off by a weird crunching noise coming from under the truck. When we look near the tires, we see the trucks have run over some dead bodies, and the driver's face is full of sadness from hearing the bones breaking. Even Kim can see the regret on his friend's face, but they got no choice but to keep moving. With bodies and wrecks everywhere, there's no clear path, and it's a mess no matter where they turn. He thinks to himself that if his discharge had been delayed by just 3 months, he might have been one of those dead soldiers. The whole situation is worse than they thought, with monsters still munching on the corpses. Suddenly, Young-so calls out to him, which snaps our boy out of his thoughts. Once he looks ahead, they see the road is blocked up ahead. Young-so points out that the barbed wire looks like it was set up by the military to block something, and they'll have to take another route. He mentions there should be another bridge they can cross. But that's when Kim spots something at the end of the blocked bridge. As we take a closer look, we notice a new type of monster we've never seen before. Now it finally makes sense what the military was trying to block. While Young-so is panicking and considering turning the car around, our boy sees this as an opportunity to level up his subspace. He then notices a narrow sidewalk on the road, perfectly blocked on both sides. He quickly tells Young-so not to turn the car around and asks if he can pass the vehicle through that sidewalk. Kim explains that he's come up with a good plan to get through this situation without having to turn back, and he's thrilled about pushing the truck through a literal pedestrian sidewalk. Young-so is shocked by such a suicidal choice, especially when an orc appears in front, scattering the mutant hounds. The monsters don't seem to be friendly with each other at all. Even though the orc has the advantage in size and strength, the mutated dogs are simply more numerous. The poor orc doesn't stand a chance against such a hungry pack, and their hollow mouths don't stop them from tearing flesh. Kim and Young-so can only watch the blood and flesh flying in every direction. Poor Young-so is really scared, and even though he knows Kim's abilities, he's doubting the sanity of going straight through. Just to be sure, he asks what Kim meant, and if he really plans to cross this bridge. Kim is confident more than his frightened friend realizes. While Young-so tries to gain courage, Kim asks him a strange question. Ever heard of a game where 3 races wage war against each other? It's called Stark, a space strategy game. But Young-so, being much older, has no idea about this game. Kim decides to explain. In the game, players could play on customizable maps and change settings however they wanted. One of Kim's favorite maps involved fending off swarms of monsters with limited units and using terrain to their advantage. And to Kim, this current situation feels just like that map. Of course, Young-so doesn't know why he's being told all this, but his understanding isn't necessary. All he has to do is follow what Kim tells him. First, Young-so has to turn the car around and back up to the barbed wire barrier. Naturally, tearing down the barbed wire makes a ton of noise, attracting the attention of the monster hounds that are busy feasting. Now, it's Kim's turn to get down to business. He activates his system and resorts to the last skill he wasn't even planning to use, but now's the perfect time. He unlocks the auto ship skill by spending 10 magic stones. He immediately asks Pax to use all his remaining magic stones to increase the shipping speed. Pax did so without delay, and now the shipping speed had increased to 100 kilometers per hour. Now that everything was ready, Kim could invite the mutant hounds that had been eating the orc to come at him. After a hearty lunch, it's playtime. The unsuspecting dogs rushed forward, but they didn't make it in time. The double-door refrigerator quickly demolished them completely. As you can see, this game was not fun for the hounds. It didn't end with the first refrigerator. More and more came after it. In just a few seconds, Kim received 12 magic stones, and he was very happy about it. The reinforced shipping range and delivery had been improved while he was still clearing the tunnel. Kim might be throwing axes instead of refrigerators now, and together with the recently improved precision delivery, it could be quite effective. But while using precision delivery last time, Kim found out that this skill doesn't track the target all the way. Instead, precision delivery only slightly corrects the direction according to the movement of the target. This could be a big problem against these hounds, which are not just fast, but incredibly quick. Even an axe, flying at 100 kilometers per hour, can be dodged by these hounds when attacked from afar. Moreover, these creatures are so fearless that they won't stop, even if one of their kind dies right next to them. Considering the current situation, where the delivery interval is 2.5 seconds, axes won't be enough to hold off their onslaught. But the refrigerator, thanks to its size, is perfectly suited to destroy several targets in a single shipment. Not only is the fridge wide, but it's also heavy enough to take down hounds with just a graze. On top of that, The automatic delivery he had just improved proved to be very convenient. Kim didn't even need to watch the battlefield. The system automatically destroyed any approaching threats. For now, our hero could just rest and relax. The hounds didn't give up, despite not even getting close to Kim. All they could do was howl with rage and keep trying. Let's be honest, though, against the flying refrigerators, they didn't stand a chance. As the battle continued, Young-so had the carelessness to look back. He nearly lost his jaw in surprise when he realized what he saw. He thought Kim could only throw axes, but here were refrigerators that were beyond his imagination. Okay, one flying refrigerator was something he could still picture, but a new one every 2 seconds was unbelievable. Plus, why would the logistics center have so many refrigerators in stock? Young-so began to wonder if the stock being retrieved was coming out as new products. Even if axes are indeed retrieved and reused by Kim's system, how it could work with refrigerators was unclear to him. Young-so just couldn't believe it and froze in place. He didn't even notice when Kim came back to him and asked if he wanted something to eat. Young-so finally realized what was going on and asked a question to make sure. He wondered if it was possible that Kim's supply was infinite. Kim was a bit surprised by the question. He thought Young-so had figured it out a long time ago, but he was wrong. All this time, Young-so had thought Kim was collecting axes after using them to recharge them, and couldn't even imagine that he actually had an infinite supply. In fact, Kim did indeed collect the axes after use with the system, but only so that they wouldn't lie on the road and accidentally injure someone. Hearing this didn't make Young-so feel any better. He still couldn't believe that items could be infinite. When he came to his senses a little, our hero asked again what he wanted to eat. Young-so had had a difficult day of emotional turmoil, so a Coke Zero and a donut were more than enough for him. While they ate quietly, the delivery system behind them was mercilessly scattering hounds. Young-so was a little ashamed of his stupidity and how he had underestimated Kim's abilities, but he was still grateful for the food, even if it was infinite. Our hero was only happy to share, and was also grateful to Young-so for his trust from the beginning. Now, if Young-so needed anything, he should just let Kim know. Kim had almost everything in stock, but Young-so wasn't in a hurry to overuse someone else's generosity. He had enough of what Kim had done for him, clearing the way of monsters and helping him get home faster. After crossing this bridge, it would only be about an hour's journey to his home. Kim was happy to hear that his friend would be able to see his family soon. Young-so was too, but he also had fears about what he might find there, just hoping that his family was safe. Kim understood him well, for he too was worried about his own parents and sisters. He wanted to give Young-so a gift and noticed his ragged clothes. He shouldn't return to his family like this. Besides, the hounds were still continuing their futile attempts, and they had time to solve the clothing problem. The only remaining question was what style Young-so would choose. He was already uncomfortable with Kim helping him, even with clothes, but he didn't refuse. After all, Young-so was sure that Kim had what he needed: aviator glasses and a cool jacket. Just what a top-class driver needed to drive around the apocalyptic landscape. Wow, is that you, Truck-kun? Just in time, the hounds were almost finished. Only a couple more to go. With his new look, Young-so gained an unprecedented confidence, and sure of the truck's durability, he decided to head out right away. His movements were fast and precise. Even Formula One drivers would envy him. Kim barely had time to grab on tightly before Young-so slammed the gas. The remaining hounds didn't even try to stop them as they drove straight down the narrow road. Young-so was lightning fast when it came to anything about driving. At this rate, he only needed 20 minutes to drive home. But Kim had to hold on tight. The truck flew down the broken roads like it was on a highway. Poor Kim shouted in vain for Young-so to drive slower, and it looked like he was about to throw up. Luckily, his suffering wasn't long. They finally arrived at Young-so's house. Or rather, what was once his home. Now it was a ruin. Young-so stands outside his house, staring at the broken-down buildings from the window. The destruction is brutal, and in his mind he's trying to convince himself that these buildings were old. That's why they fell apart. But deep down, Young-so's hand is trembling. He's standing in front of his own door, scared out of his mind, afraid of what's on the other side. He's thinking, what if my family isn't there? What if I open this door and find their bodies? His fear is suffocating. He keeps repeating to himself that they're safe, that he'll open the door and everything will be fine. But his hands won't move. He's too paralyzed to turn the handle. Kim, standing behind him, watches and knows exactly what's going through Young-so's mind. The man drove like a madman, clearing what should have been an hour's drive in just 20 minutes, all for the hope of reuniting with his family. It shows just how desperate he was to get here. But now, face to face with the possibility of finding something horrible, Young-so can't move. Kim understands. If it's a corpse he finds behind that door, Young-so might as well die too. Kim knows Young-so won't be able to open it, so he steps up, places a firm hand on Young-so's shoulder, and offers to open the door for him. Young-so freezes, a mix of frustration and fear painted across his face. Then, almost on the verge of crying, he begs Kim to do it. Kim, knowing that no one ever wants to confirm their worst nightmare, slowly steps forward. If Kim were in Young-so's shoes, he'd be terrified too. He'd want someone else to open the door for him. So turning back one last time, Kim tells Young-so that he's going to open it. Before Kim can even touch the handle, though, the door swings open from the inside. Both Kim and Young-so freeze in shock. Young-so's eyes widen as he sees his wife and daughter standing there. His wife calls his name in a soft, warm tone, and his daughter cries out, "Daddy!" Young-so's wife starts crying, and before you know it, Young-so's breaking down too. He runs to them, and the three of them hug, tightly as if they'll never let go. It's a raw, emotional moment. Kim, standing a few feet away, just watches, giving them their space. Through the tears, Young-so asks his wife how she knew to open the door. She explains that she heard voices from outside and saw him standing there through the peephole. That's why she opened it. His daughter, still crying, blurts out, "Dad, I hate you! Why did you make me wait so long? I was so scared!" After a while, Young-so's wife finally notices Kim standing in the background. She asks, "Who's this?" It's only then that Young-so remembers Kim's presence. But before he can explain, Kim's vision starts to blur, and suddenly, bam! He collapses to the ground. Young-so shouts, calling out to Kim, but Kim can't hear anything. His body is shutting down. He hasn't slept properly in 3 or 4 days, and the exhaustion finally caught up to him. The darkness overtakes him, and Kim slips into a dream. In the dream, he's hit by brute force, but it's not a punch, it's a pillow. And standing there, holding the pillow, is his elder sister. She swings it at him, knocking him to the ground, and Kim shouts at her, asking why she hit him so hard. "It hurts!" he complains. But his sister just looks at him, annoyed, and says, "What do you mean hard? That was a soft hit. You're such a crybaby." She's unbothered, brushing it off like it was nothing. Meanwhile, Kim is ready to run to their dad and tattle on her. He storms off, determined to complain to their father, but his sister couldn't care less. She stands tall, holding the pillow like a champion, declaring she's won the pillow fight championship of the month. Suddenly, the scene shifts. Kim's dad is sitting with him and his younger sister, trying to mediate a sibling argument. He calmly explains that family, as annoying as they can be sometimes, is precious. One day, Kim will realize just how lucky he is to have them, and how much love there is in those sibling squabbles. Kim's father reminds him that no matter how much they fight, the bond they share is something to cherish. After that, Kim's mom storms into the room, scolding Kim's dad like it's her job. She's frustrated, telling him she asked for help with dinner, but here he is, just chilling. The scene cuts to the whole family sitting around the dining table, eating delicious food, laughing and sharing stories. As they sit, Kim's mom calls out to his older sister, Soil. You can tell she's suspicious as she questions Soil about always being on her phone. With a raised brow, she asks if Soil's got a crush on someone. Soil, looking all nervous, brushes it off, explaining she's still in middle school, and it's just her friends texting her nonstop. That's how things roll these days. From the outside looking in, this family is lovely, pure peace and joy. Kim's dad, who can't help but jump into the convo, starts talking about how Soil is into boxing and tells her there's a sports club at Young Korean Middle School she should check out. With a smirk, Soil confesses that the only reason she picked that school was for the boxing club. Meanwhile, Kim's ears perk up at the mention of middle school. Fast forward a year, and we see Kim has joined the same middle school as Soil. He's hyped, ready to make new friends and have fun, but things take a hard left. Nothing goes as planned. Instead of making friends, Kim finds himself being bullied day in and day out by the seniors. They beat him, mock him, and Kim, being a crybaby, doesn't fight back. He just takes the hits day after day. But one day, someone steps in. Soil, his savage older sister, rolls in like a storm. With a creepy, deadly look, she grabs one of the bullies by the hand and with one punch, breaks it. Kim is beyond happy to see his sister, his savior. But that joy doesn't last. Soil, annoyed by how weak her little brother is, announces that from that day forward, Kim's training begins. And so begins Kim's hellish days of being trained by his devilish sister. The training is brutal, but it works. Soon enough, no bully dares to mess with Kim again. For a while, the life seems all right. Kim makes friends, has fun, and cruises through middle school. But as time passes, we see his younger sister land a job at a nursing school, leaving Kim and Soil both shocked, while Kim is chilling on his PS5, barely keeping up. Then comes the moment that flips his world upside down. Kim's dad walks in, telling Kim the time has come. Kim doesn't get it at first, but when it hits hard. It's time for his military enlistment. The family is worried, even though Kim tries to act tough. On the outside, he's all big man, but inside he's crying. He doesn't want to leave his family behind. And after that, well, we all know how it played out. Then slowly, Kim's eyes flicker open. He's confused, a bit scared. He's lying in a bed, unsure of where he is. He remembers being unconscious, standing outside Young-so's door, meeting his family. But everything after that, blank. He has no memory. His mind races. Has Young-so betrayed him? Instinct kicks in and Kim opens his portal, pulling out a heavy axe, gripping it tight. Then, out of nowhere, a warm, polite voice interrupts his thoughts. Kim turns, startled. He sees Young-so's wife and his daughter sitting at the table eating. They glance at him, confused as hell. Kim finally snapped back to reality, blinking and looking around, realizing he was in Young-so's house. He turned his head and noticed Young-so, completely knocked out, sleeping peacefully. Then it hit him. He had straight up passed out outside the door. Young-so's wife had said he collapsed and had been out cold ever since. Man, he must have been more exhausted than he thought. Kim glanced down at the heavy axe in his hand, and for a second, he couldn't even remember why he was holding it. What was he thinking? He quickly stashed it back into his portal, making sure no one saw it, especially Young-so's wife. She didn't need to know about that. He asked how long he'd been sleeping, and she mentioned it had only been a few hours. Then, without warning, the mood shifted. Young-so's wife, with that soft, warm smile, started thanking him, telling him how grateful she was for everything he did. Kim could feel the weight of her words. How he helped Young-so, saved his life, and brought him back home safely. The gratitude in her eyes, the way she bowed her head, it made him a little uncomfortable. Kim wasn't used to this. He felt a bit awkward, nervous even, and he just wanted to brush it off like it was no big deal. He thought about how Young-so had helped him, too. It wasn't like he did everything alone. But then, just as Kim was about to push it aside, Young-so woke up. Still groggy but determined, he jumped in to back up his wife, insisting that Kim had done more. Young-so made it sound like driving Kim here was nothing compared to how Kim had saved him over and over again. To Young-so, Kim was a straight-up lifesaver. Even if Young-so hadn't been there, he figured Kim would have made it here on his own. But then Young-so's wife switched gears, saying they all had to be hungry. And with that, the vibe shifted once again. Kim's stomach growled, and he realized he hadn't eaten in what felt like forever. She mentioned that Young-so had refused to eat without him, waiting until Kim was up. Kim couldn't help but smile. Young-so, with that goofy grin, was all about eating together. So, with a warm chuckle, they both decided it was time to dig in. And then, bam! The scene cut to the kimchi stew in front of Kim. The moment his eyes landed on it, his mouth started watering. The smell alone brought back memories of his mom. He could feel his heart tighten, but in a good way, a bittersweet kind of way. The food wasn't fancy. Young-so's wife even admitted she didn't have much to work with, but to Kim, it didn't matter. This was his favorite. Nothing felt more luxurious than kimchi stew, especially after everything he'd been through. The first bite? Heavenly. The moment that stew hit his tongue, it was like fireworks going off in his head. Every single cell in his body felt alive again. The flavor, the heat, it was almost too good to be true. And just like that, it took him back. Back to when he used to eat with his family. Back when things were simpler. But then, as the meal wrapped up, Kim felt a wave of sadness. For the first time in 3 months, he'd had a meal that reminded him of home, of family, and it made him ache. He missed them so much it hurt. Young-so, noticing Kim's quiet sadness, brought the conversation back to their journey. He mentioned that their next stop was Gangnam, and suddenly Kim paused. The realization hit him, and in that moment, he was shocked. Kim couldn't understand what Young-so was saying at first. The whole thing just felt off. Then Young-so explained it all. He'd already talked this over with his wife. Once she heard about Kim's situation, she insisted that since Kim had helped Young-so reach his family, Young-so should do the same for him. Kim was still feeling confused, though. Even if Young-so took him to Gangnam, how would Young-so get back safely on his own? They stepped outside to clear their heads, And that's when Young-soo broke down the full plan. He'd drive Kim to Gangnam in his truck. Then Kim would have to leave his electric bike with Young-soo. Once they got to Gangnam, Young-soo would use the bike to make his way back home. Hearing this, Kim finally started to calm down, but the whole thing still didn't sit right with him. Why was Young-soo going out of his way to help him? Sure, Young-soo was a god-level driver, and with the bike, he'd be able to dodge most monsters, but the guy didn't have any combat skills. If a big monster, like a viper, came after him, it would be game over, and it made no sense. Young-soo had a truck full of resources. His family was safe. Why risk it all just to help Kim? Something wasn't adding up. So Kim finally decided to ask the question that had been bugging him. Why was Young-soo putting his life on the line for him? Young-soo smiled warmly, like he knew Kim was going to ask that. Then he dropped the real reason. Why did Kim help him first? Kim didn't want anything in return, didn't ask for favors. He just helped. If Kim hadn't been there, Young-soo would have died in that tunnel. So now, Young-soo wanted to repay the favor because they were in the same boat. Kim might have an awakened ability, but that didn't mean life wasn't still tough for him. Young-soo knew what it felt like to be desperate, to hold on to hope that your family is out there somewhere, safe. That's why he risked the tunnel. And now, he wanted Kim to feel the same joy he did when he reunited with his family. But Young-soo, with that sly grin, reassured Kim that if things got too dangerous, he'd get out. His driving skills would get him out of any situation. He wasn't about to risk his life unnecessarily, so Kim didn't need to worry. That's when Kim got hit with a flashback. He remembered when he first left for the tunnel, spotting a car with the keys still inside. Young-soo could have left everyone behind, but he didn't. He stayed with the group, helping them out. That's when Kim realized Young-soo was lying. He wasn't going to abandon Kim. He just didn't want to admit how far he was willing to go to help. So, with a kind smile, Kim agreed, but he added a condition. If Young-soo was coming with him, he had to bring his family along. Kim explained that he'd upgraded his subspace, and now he had the ability to bring others inside. Young-soo's family would be safer in there than in the building. Without hesitating for even a second, Young-soo threw on his gangster sunglasses and grinned like a boss, ready to drive that truck with his god-tier skill. Meanwhile, Kim had already upgraded his subspace to level 2, using 16 of his 116 mana stones. Now he could fit up to 20 people inside. The system told him it would take 6 mana stones a day to maintain it now, but that didn't faze him. The system asked if Kim wanted to allow external presence in the portal, and he said yes. Moments later, Young-soo, his wife, and his daughter entered the subspace. The look on their faces said it all. They were speechless. The Logitech Center was massive, stocked with endless resources. Kim called out to Pax, introducing him to Young-soo's family, and Young-soo told them that if they needed anything, Pax would handle it. Everything was infinite. They could use whatever they wanted without hesitation. Kim's wife looked absolutely shocked. It was like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Meanwhile, Kim told them he had some business to take care of, so they should just enjoy themselves. The place was theirs for now. After that, Young-soo turned to his daughter and asked if she wanted to play princess with Daddy. They looked so happy together, and Kim couldn't help but smile as he watched them. Then, something else happened. Kim's new ability unlocked. A laboratory where he could combine, classify, and transform any registered item in his subspace. And just like that, the possibilities became endless. Kim sat there, his mind racing as he wondered if his abilities were truly what he thought they were. He remembered the first time his ability unlocked. It was called Subspace. Back then, he could store anything he wanted. If he stored an apple, that apple would be in his subspace for life. But then, by some crazy accident, he ended up storing the entire Logitech Center in there, which completely upgraded his ability. His subspace merged with the Logitech Center, evolving his powers even further. Now, no one could enter his subspace except for him. But that wasn't the wildest part. The Pax AI from the Logitech Center, yeah, that merged with his system too. Now, those cold mechanical AIs had developed human-like emotions, and just when he thought it couldn't get crazier, the mechanisms from the Logitech Center, like shipment, evolved. Now he could launch items at 100 kilometers per hour. Subspace alone was insane, but with the addition of Pax AI, it was a whole new level of madness. Kim hadn't expected his ability to upgrade this much, but after reaching level 2, the game had changed. Kim now had another wild option. He could put anything in his subspace one more time. That revelation shocked him. The idea that he could store anything, that he had a personal lab where he could combine and create new items, was mind-boggling. At this point, it was like playing Minecraft IRL. He couldn't help but wonder what would happen if his subspace hit level 3 or 4. What kind of crazy powers would unlock then? But thinking about it wasn't going to get him anywhere. He didn't have enough mana stones to level up just yet. So for now, he needed to focus on what new thing he would add to his subspace. Last time, it had been the Logitech Center, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. But now, Kim, with a majestic aura, decided to command his system to store the entire Earth in his subspace. Yeah, you read that right. He was about to store the Earth. If that happened, every living being would float off into space. The system asked for confirmation, and Kim, with a bit of tension, confirmed. But after 2 minutes, nothing happened. Then the system sent a notification: failure. The Earth couldn't be stored because it was outside the storage range. Kim sighed, figuring something like that would happen, but he had to try. It was worth a shot. Suddenly, Youngso appeared, talking about the route to Gangnam. Kim listened, but quickly asked why Youngso wasn't playing with his daughter like he had said. Youngso smiled kindly and explained that his daughter had been scared in the building, never feeling safe. But now, in this new place, she felt secure, and that's why she'd finally fallen asleep. It was all thanks to Kim. Youngso was grateful, and Kim, always humble, reminded him that Youngso had helped him just as much. If it hadn't been for Youngso's driving skills, Kim wouldn't have made it this far. They were even in his mind. But Youngso, with a serious tone, said he'd do whatever he could to help Kim. The scene shifted, and there they were. Youngso, driving his truck in God mode, rocking his gangster glasses. Kim was tense, feeling like the air had gotten heavier. Something was off, and he could feel it. Youngso, smiling, casually said that driving was the only thing he was good at, and he was confident no one could drive faster than him. He told Kim to buckle up, because things were about to get wild. Kim knew exactly what was coming and started crying inside. And then it happened. Youngso hit the gas, and the truck blasted off like a rocket. In no time, they had covered a huge distance, but everywhere they looked, there was nothing but destruction. The land was torn apart, and buildings were in ruins. While Youngso kept his cool, smiling, Kim looked like a zombie. His face was pale, dried up from the stress. Youngso mentioned they'd be at their destination soon, but just as they were closing in, they saw the road was blocked. Military barricades, complete with spike strips, were laid out. Kim realized something wasn't right. These weren't normal barricades. As they looked closer, a military jeep approached, but the people inside didn't look like soldiers. Kim tensed up, serious now. Those men, they weren't military, they were coming for trouble. Kim knew if they tried to escape, they'd be gunned down. Youngso asked, tense, what they should do. Kim opened his portal and told Youngso to get in. He'd handle the rest. Without hesitation, Youngso slipped into the portal, and Kim prepared to face whatever came next. Kim stood by the truck, eyeing the 3 guys stepping up with guns in hand. They strutted up like they owned the place, barking orders. One of them, all muscle and no brains, had the nerve to tell Kim to get out of the truck. Kim, barely holding back a smirk, just stared them down with a deadly glare. Without a word, he stepped out. They popped open the back of the truck and were shocked to see it packed with food. Their eyes lit up, like they hit the jackpot. They turned to Kim, asking if all that food was his. Kim, calm as ever, just nodded. But the musclehead stepped up, flexing his authority, and said that this food wasn't Kim's anymore. It was theirs now. Kim knew these clowns weren't military, not even close. These jokers were just after his resources. Musclehead, trying to look tough, asked Kim where he got all this stuff from. Kim, deciding to play dumb, acted like a clueless delivery boy and said he worked at the Logitech Center. They weren't buying it and demanded to know where the center was. Kim explained in the most casual tone that even if he told them, they wouldn't make it there. The roads were blocked, and monsters were all over the place. He had barely made it himself, just trying to survive. Musclehead wasn't impressed. He shot Kim a deadly stare, asking how much more loot was left at the center. Kim, playing along, said the food in the truck was just a fraction of what was stored there. One of the other guys checked his watch, muttering that it was almost time. Kim was confused. What were they rushing for? Before he could figure it out, bam! Musclehead punched him straight in the gut. Kim hit the ground hard. Wind knocked out of him. Before he could even catch his breath, the ugly fatso behind them slapped a cloth over Kim's face, knocking him out cold. Next thing, Kim woke up in a dim room, tied to a chair. His vision was still blurry, but he saw Ugly Fatso sitting in front of him on some wannabe commander's throne. A body lay on the ground nearby, blood pooling around it. Clearly a dead soldier. Kim quickly put it together. These thugs had taken over the military base. Ugly Fatso started talking, explaining how they'd killed off the military and made themselves the new bosses around here. Turns out they'd been fighting Vibrants, flying monsters that came every day at 6 p.m. sharp. The military had tried to fight them off with guns, but nothing worked. So they recruited people like Ugly Fatso and his crew. But when the military couldn't keep up, Fatso and his gang just wiped them out. Now, Ugly Fatso was the self-proclaimed commander. He made it clear to Kim that he hadn't killed him yet only because he needed him. Kim's job? To go back to the Logitech Center with some of Fatso's guys and raid it for resources. If Kim succeeded, maybe, just maybe, Fatso would let him join their gang and protect him. Kim had heard enough. Annoyed didn't even begin to cover it. He was beyond done with these clowns. He stood there, pissed, thinking about what to do next. Then it hit him. This military base would make the perfect addition to his subspace. Without a second thought, he ordered Pax to store the entire Joint Commander Communication Headquarters into his subspace. Fatso didn't even realize what was happening. He sat there, confused, as the entire military base around him disappeared. 1 minute it was there, the next it was gone. Poof! Fatso was left sitting on his chair, out in the middle of nowhere, completely clueless. By the time Ugly Fatso figured out what had happened, it was too late. Kim had already disappeared into his portal, leaving Fatso sitting there with nothing but his chair in the middle of the deserted wasteland. At least Kim was nice enough to leave him something to sit on. Write the next part in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye!